Hi students, we're going to do the action painting today, so let me show you how to set up. First of all, you need a bunch of objects. I like to call these junk drawer objects. Push pins, rubber bands, paper clips. I have some clothespins, bubble wrap, orange bag mesh, a few beads, packing peanuts, coins, string, Q-tips, and then also an old gift card. Here's an old example that I did where I kind of hid the objects within the paint colors. I tried to use all of the colors, red, yellow, and blue. And then if you look closely, you can kind of pick out my objects. Today I'm going to show you one that I use really different colors so you have a choice and do what you would like to see on your paper as far as color goes. So a nice way to start is to add an all-over base of a couple of colors. I'm going to choose yellow and green, and then I'm going to show a nice contrast with some other colors on top. So you can use your fingers to apply the paint, you can stamp, you can drag, you can also use tools. The Q-tips work well, the packing peanuts work well to apply paint in a large area at one time. You can also use the old gift card in order to drag and apply large amounts of paint across the paper at once, and then you'll just get some different kind of marks. So figure out what you like the look of, and then just start with a couple of colors. So once you have an all-over base of color, you can add more color on top. You can actually scratch into the color using some of your tools. You can see me doing this just with the gift card to make some white lines in my background. And then I'm just using a little bit of extra yellow on top of my green to make it stand out. Now, a good idea after this is just to kind of let things dry and keep your paint thin. It will dry much faster. So now I'm going to try some really different colors. I'm going to put some reds and purples on top of my yellow-green. It works a little better if the paint is somewhat dry, and I'm going to use some of my tools to start stamping, and eventually I'm going to even leave some of those really flat tools in the painting, like the coins, as a little bit of evidence of the process. And Jackson Pollock himself did embed objects into his painting or leave them if they became part of the process, even if it was accidental. Things like sawdust, old cigarette butts, paintbrush fibers, anything else that may have been laying around his studio. So I'm now using a little bit of a mesh texture first to stamp, but you can also apply paint over it and make it kind of part of the painting itself. So again, you can make your objects stand out with different colors and also some of your mark making styles. But if you want to, you can also kind of hide or camouflage them with a similar color throughout the entire painting. Some of my larger 3D objects are just better for stamping, so I'm taking the end of this pen cap and stamping some circular marks. You could also use the Q-tips, you could use the coins, whatever else, even the packing peanuts. But think about stamping, dragging, embedding, and creating some really interesting textures on top. Now, because you're using a palette with round circles, it's a little harder to get your objects into the paint. So you may need to take your fingers or another tool and use those to apply the paint to an object like the binder clip before you use it to stamp. So you can also hide marks that you're unsatisfied with a little bit of extra texture. You don't want to start over. The whole point is to get this done in a class period and record the actions of you actually making the painting. Try to have fun and enjoy the experience as much as you can. So I'm also going to reinforce some of my base colors and again, kind of camouflage some of the objects. So I'm using more yellows and greens again and using that paint kind of to make the objects stick in the paper. You don't want to use anything that's really 3D. If you're going to leave it as part of your painting, make sure it's as flat as possible, and you're going to use the paint as a form of glue to stick to the paper. So now I also use some bubble wrap to make some circular marks and kind of like a stamping. This is an object that you need to stamp with. You don't want to leave this embedded into the paint itself. But the bubble wrap makes some interesting marks and kind of adds to the texture of the piece without creating actual texture. So when you think you're finished, make sure all your paper is covered. Ask yourself if your mark making looks evenly balanced, and what you would like to do next is put your painting on the drying rack, and you're going to wash all of your paint out of your palette and clean up your table before the end of class. Enjoy!